From forgotten food scraps left in the woods to discarded baby diapers in campsite bins, it's all a buffet to a grizzly. And by offering up those temptations, humans have put themselves in real danger, and the consequences were nothing short of brutal. Leah Loken was a retired nurse from Chico, California. She had spent her life tending to others, stitching wounds and holding hands in sterile hospital wards. But her soul belonged in the untamed spaces of the world, in the hum of bicycle tires on gravel, in the whisper of wind weaving through pines. She was 65, strong-legged, sharp-willed, and utterly unwilling to yield to age. Leah wasn't just active, she was driven. In 2015, she took first place in the women's Enduro 60-plus category at the Mammoth National Championship. She even conquered the Bidwell Bump in Chico in 2013, topping the expert women's division. These weren't casual weekend rides, they were punishing climbs and technical descents, races that demanded courage and resolve, and Leah always brought both. So in July 2021, when she planned a 400-mile journey along the Great Divide from Eureka to Helena, it was just another chapter in a life steeped in challenge. She was joined by her sister Kim and their friend Joe Cole, both seasoned riders themselves. Together they pedaled through forests so thick the sun barely touched the ground. By the 8th day, they arrived in Ovando, Montana, a one-church town with fewer than 100 residents. That evening, the trio set up camp behind the Brand Bar Museum, a charmingly rustic spot with an old jailhouse and not much else. Leah pitched her tent on a soft patch of grass, bear spray at the ready, as always. That night, she was content. Kim would later say Leah had been calm and joyful, laughing over dinner, stretching out in her sleeping bag beneath the gentle glow of the stars. It was the kind of evening she lived for. Then came the sound. Low, guttural, close. Around 3:08 a.m., Leah stirred from sleep. Something was outside her tent. A grunt, followed by the soft scrape of weight shifting over gravel. Not the shuffle of a raccoon or curious deer. Heavier, intentional. She knew what it was, and she didn't panic. Unzipping her tent, Leah moved quickly. She grabbed the food inside, lentils, protein bars, wrapped snacks, and carried it to the old jailhouse nearby, about 25 feet away. She secured it there and returned to her tent. Joe and Kim, now fully awake, also stashed their food and made deliberate noise. The bear, it seemed, was discouraged. It slinked off into the darkness. For a moment there was relief, but not peace. Instead of them leaving the area, they decided to stay. Although they didn't sleep at first, it didn't take long before Joe lay in his tent listening to his own heartbeat. Minutes passed, maybe 20, maybe 30. Then, chaos. A crash, the unmistakable sound of a tent collapsing. Then a growl, raw, deep, and final. Joe lunged out, flashlight in one hand, bear spray in the other. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Leah's tent was shredded, and the bear was on her. It wasn't a bluff charge. It wasn't confusion. The grizzly had returned, found her, and struck with lethal force. It had torn through nylon and mesh in seconds, dragging her from the tent as if she weighed nothing. Its jaws clamped down, its claws slashed with ruthless precision. Joe ran forward, yelling, his bear spray hissing in a bright, stinging arc. The bear recoiled and bolted into the trees, but it had done what it came to do. Leah lay just beyond the ruin of her tent, motionless. Kim screamed for help. Joe dropped to his knees, heart pounding, trying CPR. EMS arrived minutes later, but the outcome was already written. They used an AED. They tried everything. At 4:50 a.m., Leah Davis Loken was pronounced dead. The coroner's report later confirmed what they had already feared. Her neck had been broken, spinal cord severed. Massive trauma to her head and upper body. Death had come fast, but brutally. The bear didn't stop there. That same night, it tore into a nearby chicken coop, killing several birds. DNA from that scene matched the one at Leah's campsite. This was no rogue, starving animal. It was a healthy adult male, 417 pounds, young, strong, and food-conditioned. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks launched a manhunt. For 3 tense days, they tracked the bear, following prints, camera traps, and sightings. When they found him, there was no ceremony. The bear was euthanized. His hide and skull were salvaged. But the damage couldn't be undone. Investigators combed through every detail. The Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee published a full report, and its findings were chilling. The attack on Leah was predatory, not defensive. Grizzly bears rarely hunt humans. Most attacks happen when a bear is startled or defending cubs or food, but this bear had learned something far more dangerous. People meant food. Trash, chicken coops, snacks in saddlebags, it didn't matter. The scent was enough. The reward had come easy. Even though Leah had moved her food, investigators noted other traces. A nearby saddlebag held energy chews. A pair of gloves smelled faintly of barbecue from a 4th of July cookout days earlier. The bear didn't need a buffet. It just needed a trail. Most chilling of all was this. The bear hadn't tried to eat her. It didn't linger. It didn't scavenge. It attacked, then left. That's what predation looks like. In the weeks that followed, Leah's story swept through the cycling world, the hiking world, the wild corners of the internet where people trade stories of survival and risk. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't unprepared. She'd done everything right, kept her bear spray close, stored her food, acted quickly. But sometimes it's not enough. Not when a predator decides you're prey. Sometimes the prey gets lucky. That's exactly what happened to a family camping in Colorado. In the stillness of a summer night high in Colorado's White River National Forest, a family of 3 lay sleeping in their tent at Deer Hammer Campground. Surrounded by the hush of pine trees and the soft lapping of nearby Rudy Reservoir, it should have been a peaceful retreat. The man, whose name would never be made public, was a father, husband, and lover of the outdoors. He had grown up hiking the Rockies and now shared that love with his wife and their 1-year-old child. This trip was meant to be a quiet, memory-making escape from daily life. The campground was a well-equipped one, outfitted just a month earlier with bear-proof storage lockers and signs reminding campers of the importance of keeping food secure. It was standard in bear country, especially in areas like this, remote, beautiful, and known to be frequented by black bears. But despite the warnings and the convenience of the lockers, some habits die hard. The family had placed only a bag of potato chips inside the locker. Everything else, coolers filled with food and fish, wrappers, garbage, remained out in the open, tucked into corners of their tent or just outside. Around 3:30 a.m. on June 17, 2015, the silence shattered. A black bear, driven by the scent of food, crept toward the tent. No one heard it approach, its padded feet soft against the earth, its body nearly invisible in the darkness. Then it scratched and nosed its way in. The man woke to pain, a sharp tearing pain in his forearm as the bear bit down. Panic surged. With his wife and baby inches away, he did what instinct demanded. He fought. Thrashing and shouting, he struck out at the animal. It worked. The bear released him and vanished into the night, leaving behind only the scent of fear and 2 puncture wounds. His injuries were not severe, though they could have been. He was rushed by car to Valley View Hospital in Glenwood Springs, where doctors cleaned the wounds and released him the same day. Physically, he was lucky, but the psychological toll was heavier. To be attacked while sleeping, with his child beside him, that was a wound that wouldn't heal so quickly. Back at the campground, Colorado Parks and Wildlife officials sprang into action. Traps were set, signs went up, tents were temporarily banned. Only hard-sided campers would be allowed going forward. What the officers leading the attack investigation found wasn't surprising, but it was disappointing. Unsecured food and trash, even with ample opportunity and equipment to store it safely. The bear, if caught, would have to be euthanized. Policy was clear. Any bear that injures a person must be removed to protect future visitors. As tragic as the attack was for the family, it was a death sentence for the bear, an animal doing what it had learned to do in an environment changed by human carelessness. It wasn't the first time a bear had been killed because of human mistakes, and it wouldn't be the last. In Colorado, black bears are common, especially in late spring and summer as they forage aggressively. Most are timid, avoiding people when they can, but those that find food at campsites or in neighborhoods quickly lose their fear. They return again and again until someone gets hurt, until they're trapped and destroyed. The incident sent ripples through the camping community. Deer Hammer had never had a bear problem before, but now it became a case study in what could go wrong. Colorado Parks and Wildlife redoubled efforts to educate the public, distributing pamphlets, posting warnings, issuing fines. The message was clear. The wilderness comes with responsibilities. Bear-proof lockers aren't decorations. Coolers aren't safe. Tents are not fortresses. For the man and his family, the trip ended in trauma. But there's no way the trauma will affect him as it would a 3-year-old child. The evening air in Montana was soft and cool, tinged with the sweet scent of cottonwood. Madison Finley Dixon, 3 years old, had fallen asleep hours earlier, bundled tightly inside her tiny sleeping bag that looked like a brown bear. To her, the tent was a safe little pocket of adventure, canvas walls glowing amber from a flashlight, her juice box half finished beside her, her favorite blanket tucked beneath her chin. The stars above Perry's RV park blinked quietly, and the grown-ups laughed in low tones around a grill outside. All was still. Her parents, Jen and Caleb, sat in folding chairs not far from the tent, plates balanced on their laps, enjoying the rare hush that comes when your child finally drifts off to sleep. This trip, they had hoped, would be a reset. Time away from Spokane, away from traffic and work emails and the gnawing stress of routine. Just nature, space, and Madison's laughter echoing between the trees. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that the silence around them wasn't empty. A black bear had been nearby for hours, possibly days. Young, probably just a few years old, had learned to watch campgrounds like this one. It didn't take much. A scent trail left by a thrown-out juice pouch, a hamburger wrapper in a fire pit, the sticky sweetness of a half-closed cooler. And this tent had everything: snacks, drinks, even a used diaper rolled into a bag near the back corner. To a bear, this was not trash. It was an invitation. At 9:03 p.m., the campground was quiet. Too quiet for what came next. There was no sound before it happened. No rustling in the underbrush, no huff or warning snort. The bear didn't roar. It didn't need to. It simply pushed forward, slipping toward the tent as if it had done this before, as if it knew what was waiting behind the thin wall of nylon. It tore through the fabric like paper. Inside, Jen woke first. Her mind struggled to match the ripping noise with something rational. Wind, maybe, or a sudden storm. But the weight of the shape pressing into the tent, the musky scent of fur and earth, made her blood run cold. She turned and screamed. The bear was already inside. Not fully, but enough. Its paw, massive and dark, slashed toward Madison's sleeping bag. It made no sound except for a deep, wet breath. Its claws raked across the fabric and caught the child's side, lifting her small body like a stuffed toy. The scream that followed shattered the calm. Jen lunged instinctively, wrapping her arms around her daughter even as the bear yanked backward, trying to pull the child out of the tent. Caleb was there in seconds, half diving across the ground, pounding at the bear's side with both fists, yelling at the top of his lungs. The bear reeled back, startled, confused. Lights were snapping on around the campground. Voices rose, flashlights pointed. It let go, not in fear but in calculation. It had learned something. Food wasn't always easy. And then it was gone, just like that. One moment a nightmare, the next, darkness again. Madison's blood was everywhere. Jen was cradling her, trying to cover the wounds with a sweatshirt, her voice trembling as she spoke to dispatch. Caleb held his daughter's hand, whispering again and again that it was over, that she was safe, even though her eyes had gone wide and distant. Neighbors arrived, offering towels, cell phones, and help. It took only minutes for the first sirens to echo up the road. 60 miles. That's how far the ambulance drove, winding northeast toward Billings, its light bathing the lonely highway in red and white. Inside, a trauma nurse held pressure on Madison's wounds, while her mother sat frozen in the front seat, lips moving in a silent prayer. The bear hadn't taken her life, but it had left a mark. At Billings Clinic, trauma teams worked fast. Puncture wounds, lacerations, deep tissue damage to her torso and arm. Sedation, antibiotics, a line of stitches that wrapped around her side like ivy. The doctor said she'd live. Physically, she'd heal. But even as they worked, they all understood. That kind of terror at 3 years old doesn't just disappear. Back at Perry's campground, the scene was locked down. Yellow caution tape, empty campsites, wildlife officers walking in circles with clipboards and tranquilizer rifles. Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks had seen it before. Bears that learn campsites mean food rarely unlearn it. The traps were set that night. 2 days later, they found her. A subadult female black bear, healthy, underweight, and far too confident. Officials couldn't say with certainty she was the attacker, but in the calculus of public safety, hesitation wasn't an option. The bear was euthanized, quietly, efficiently. By then, Madison was sitting up in bed, her side wrapped in gauze. Her parents knew the healing would take longer than stitches ever could, and they're prepared for it.